You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Have you been up to much this week?
I've been on holiday. Again, it seems like I'm always on a holiday from work, doesn't it? But
yeah, well,
I've had a lot of holiday in a really short space of time. Yes, I've been doing a lot of reading, started writing again, just sort of catching up with myself, really.
Awesome. And have you been getting involved in the paranormal world this week?
Oh, as always, like to stick my beak in, you know me.
Yeah. There does seem to be some sort of paranormal drama at some stage, and
I don't cause dramas. I just like to watch them.
Not you personally, but there all seems to be every now and again, every week, it's something new coming out.
It does seem like that at the moment. It does seem like that. But anyway, we've got a group that have given no drama so far. Amazing, right? Absolutely. That in itself is paranormal.
Absolutely. And that leads me on to introduce our guests for tonight. We have Kayleigh Woods and Mark Groves from Paranormal Newcastle. Is that correct?
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
All right, thanks. How are you both?
Yeah, all good.
Thanks, yeah. So, guys, tell us how your team...
I'll let Kerry carry on.
Oh, sorry. Jump straight in there. That's typical Kerry, right? So how did your team form and how long have you been running? Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
So I formed the group in November last year, so it's almost a year old. And I've invited Mark to join the group very recently, but he's been on an investigation with us before. And I just felt like I wanted my own way of doing things. I didn't want to go on investigations with other people where I had to conform to how they were doing it. And I feel like when you have a group of the public, they might want to do different things as well. So I quite like how the way I run things is anybody can do anything they want with obviously barriers.
Yeah. So it's a year you've been running.
Yeah.
Where have you investigated around your area?
So we've done the castle, the tunnels, Vane Tempest Hall. I've done Seton Delver Hall Mausoleum, and I just tend to stick to the same areas really. But I've had a lot of fun doing the investigations. I've branched out a bit as well. I've not just done Newcastle, but Chillingham Castle.
Chillingham, was that?
Yeah.
They're nice, aren't they, though, to have a variety of different locations. And you don't have to go that far out when you're investigating to make the most of your local area. So in your local area, are you from Newcastle itself?
Yeah, I am.
Do they do ghost walks and that in Newcastle, like other cities?
Yeah, they do. Well, I'm actually tomorrow night, me and Mark are going on a ghost walk in Newcastle, aren't we, Mark?
We are indeed.
Awesome.
That'll be great.
So, how do you approach the paranormal when you go out? If you're with the public, but are you skeptics or are you believers? Where do we sit with it all?
Me and Mark both believe, but we go in to debunk things. We don't go in to say, "Oh my God, we heard that. That's definitely a ghost." If there's something, we go in to debunk it. Like with the tunnels, me and Mark have both been in twice with each other. I've been in before separately, and the second time we went in to debunk what we found the last time, which we didn't manage to do.
No, it's difficult sometimes, isn't it, to recreate the exact moment when the first piece of footage happened, and it's that's the problem, isn't it, that we have. We're trying to be sceptical and debunk what we find, but sometimes it's a specific condition that creates that.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally been in the tunnel 3 times, yet there's only that one time where I could categorically say I cannot explain what happened. And I mean, there was witnesses. The whole of everyone that was with us witnessed the same thing, which was amazing. And I will go into that later. And Mark would love to go into that one as well, I think.
Yeah, save it, because that actually happened in the Victoria tunnels, didn't it?
Yeah.
Which is actually what we was going to have a look at tonight. So, where are the Victoria tunnels in Newcastle? How is it a small tunnel? I mean, what is it?
So it's near the Ousburn, which is in Byker, and it was an old tunnel that went under Newcastle and under the town moor and that, and it was used to transport wagons under Newcastle. It was easier to get them that way, and when it was closed, it got closed and then it reopened as a air raid shelter, and it was used heavily during the war as an air raid shelter. Then it got closed off again and then is now open to the public. There's a lot more of it though. The entrance from the Ousburn, it's bricked off at a certain point, so you can't go any further.
Right. But originally it was 3.6 kilometres long.
Yeah, it was a long tunnel.
Which is a long
it still
tunnel.
feels long.
I bet it does. Now, in the war, when it turned into an air raid shelter, they actually put in, like, blast walls, didn't they? Staggered down the tunnel. Is that still intact or not?
Yeah, the blast walls are still intact.
Is anything else
weird
from that era when it was an air raid shelter?
So you can see, like, where the toilets used to be, and the like in the floor where it would be like metal buckets, and you can see the outline of where they were sat. And there's on the wall, there's like a stone, and it's got what looks like names on it, and there's a cross, which seems to be directly underneath Christchurch, or there's a church, and it's directly underneath it. But the writing, there's 3 names and nobody knows what the names are, whether it was toilet graffiti, whether it's a memorial to somebody, nobody can place what the names are.
So they've obviously checked records and stuff for these names.
Yeah, I mean, we've checked, we can see the names, but we were talking to Rob, one of the guides at the tunnel, and he said that he's gone to the church and checked. He can't find any reference to who these names are, and he's extensively looked into it.
That's a shame, isn't it? Because that would be really interesting to find that hidden piece of history almost.
Yeah,
just tantalising hint of a name on a wall, and it's like there's something. Somebody at some point wrote that on the wall. Do you know what I mean? In a moment of, we can assume, an air raid, and. You know, you just think about that person in that moment, writing that on the wall, and just to capture that little piece of history backing up with facts would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be. They thought maybe if one of the bombs outside, people could have been brought in to shelter or whatever in the tunnel, and they might have died there, but there's just no records for any of that. As far as we're aware, there's only one recorded death in the tunnel, and that was of William Coulson, who got hit by one of the wagons.
Very good.
But
because there were varying reports on that on the internet when I was looking. It went from like 3 deaths to 1 death. So yeah, it is only the 1 death, though, isn't it? Sorry.
The deaths have been like around the tunnel, like and above it. Like Tarset Street. Did you look up Tarset Street?
No, I didn't get that far. Tell me about that.
So you go past the blast walls, and it's further towards the end of the tunnel, directly above would have been Tarset Street. That's no longer the way it was, but there was a bomb that had fallen, and it had left like a crater, and a little girl called Irene had climbed down or fallen in. I think there might have been tarpaulin sheet on top of it, and she'd either fallen in or whatever when she was playing. And her mum had come out looking for her, and there was this boy, Ernie, and he had gone in looking for her. He could try not to. I think he was a Boy Scout or something along them lines. Climbed in looking for her, didn't come out. Then 2 firefighters climbed in looking for them, didn't come out, and it had actually been poisonous gas in the hole, and none of them came out, and that was directly above the tunnel. So they say that it's their spirits that are in there as well.
Oh, so that's why there's that discrepancy.
Yeah, so there's been one death registered in the tunnel. I mean, 10,000 people would have been in it when it was an air raid shelter, so that's not to say that none of them died there, but it's not registered.
Mm. Do you know what he died of?
William Coulson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he got hit by one of the wagons. There had been a railway disaster further along, and the tunnel had shut. Not in the tunnel, but somewhere in Newcastle there was a railway disaster. The tunnel had shut, and he had gone in looking to sell the tunnel to 2 brothers, and he had sent a note up with a boy to say don't run any of the wagons down, and the note never got there. One of the wagons came down, and the 2 brothers managed to hide, one I think against the wall who had lost his leg, another one lying on the floor, and William Coulson got hit by the wagon.
Oh, wow.
Is this a location that's open to the public?
Yeah.
And obviously they allow paranormal investigations, yeah?
Yeah.
So this is okay, cool. So this is a location that other teams can possibly look at.
Yeah, you'd email them that it's run by the Ousburn Trust. So
okay.
It's a really good location, and Mark will agree with me. It's got so much history. Even if you went down there and nothing happened, it is just an amazing place steeped in history, and I absolutely love it.
So when you're down the tunnel, do you have any vibration or anything from above?
You can hear the metro in a certain part. So do you know that? Are you familiar with the metro system in Newcastle?
No, is it? I assume it's like the subway in London.
Yeah, we've got underground trains. No, they're not all underground, just around the Newcastle area they are. So Monument Metro and Haymarket Metro, Manners, and there's a few other ones that run underground rather than overground, which I think you can also hear the overground mainline trains as well, but they make noise. The further you get into the tunnel, you hear them more. But you would know it's metro.
You would, yeah?
Yeah.
And what about the vibration factor? Is there a vibration factor in the tunnels? Just trying to set the scene, everybody.
Not that I'm aware of. Do you think there was, Mark?
No, but I mean, you do get, as the metro comes through the tunnel area towards the end, like right near where St Dominic's Church is, which is like the last point you get with the tunnel, you do get a sense of a vibration as the train's coming through. But I think that's more just to do with the actual noises. It's echoing as it comes out of their tunnel towards Baker. So I think that's the only time you actually get a vibration. But there's not. I wouldn't say there's actually any vibrations at all in the actual tunnels itself. So you can't really hear anything from where you're in, apart from the metro.
Oh, okay, cool. At least you can pinpoint that.
I've had little motion balls on the floor, the ones where you click the button and the flash when there's motion, and they've not moved due to any vibrations. They don't tend to move much anyway unless you touch them, but I suppose they could with vibrations. But I've not had them moved, so I would assume vibrations wouldn't affect anything.
Right.
Do you find that K2, do you get K2 hits as well?
We did. When we were there, we were there on Friday, so not Friday, but the previous time, I know I had my K2 meter on the floor, and it seemed to respond on request, and there shouldn't have been anything in the tunnel that would have altered that. I mean, it was on the floor.
What about with the metro system above? Would that not spike it off?
Not that I'm aware. It might have done, but it was only going on the first 2 lights. It wasn't lighting up massively. It wasn't spiking to the top extent. It was just sort of on and off when I was asking questions. It could be the metro system. I know at the Castle Keep, the EMF spikes are quite big because the train line, Central Station, is right next to it.
Right, okay.
So,
interesting.
And I think the part of the tunnel where we're at as well, where we actually had the K2s, was right at the very beginning. And when we first went in, we did sort of a quick sweep, and we had nothing at all. And then once we started the investigation and because obviously Kayleigh put hers down, I put mine down as well, and obviously both of them were responding. But like one wouldn't respond, and then the other one would.
Yeah.
So it was as though like they were interacting with one of them, but not the other one.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I ask is because me and Kerry done an investigation last year, and we was in this building, and I don't know, how far would you say the station was, Kerry?
Yeah, I'm trying to. See distance. 500 meters.
Yeah. So it wasn't like right on top of the station, but the train system at here has like overline power cables. Mm-hmm. So every time a train went by, we got the EMF spike, and we was able to see a pattern in that, and we attributed it to the station. So with the tunnels being so close to the metro, I was just wondering whether or not that would have had some sort of effect.
I have a feeling we had on Friday when we were down there, we had the EMF meter and it didn't spike when the metro went past, because it's one of them that alarmed, so it didn't sound off when the metros were going past, and we're noting.
Cool. Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing with K2s, though, isn't it? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Is like kind of where you would expect them to go off. They don't, and then all of a sudden they'll start going off, and you're like, well, is it that? Because that's a possibility, because you can't discount it. But why was it not going off before? So that is the problem with K2 meters. I'm not a fan because of that unreliability, personally, but that's just my opinion. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
I would never get anything from a K2 meter and definitively say, yep, that's evidence of the paranormal, because you can't with that sort of equipment. You just cannot rule anything out.
Exactly. So how many times have you actually investigated it?
I have 3 times, and I think Mark has twice.
I've done it twice, but I've actually been down there 5 times in total. I've done like 2 tours, and I did a sort of reenactment play of the World War II, and sort of like we'd play the part of the people who were actually going down there, and that was really quite informative when we got that, which was really quite good. But yeah, I've been down about 5 times, but only twice investigating.
And
it's a really good one.
What's the vibe when you go down there, like normally? Because when you've gone down dressed up, it's a different vibe, because it's almost like the Singapore theory, isn't it? Where you're recreating an environment.
Yeah.
So when you're not recreating the environment, you're just going down to investigate. How is the feel of the place? What does it feel like, other than claustrophobic?
No, go on.
For me, when I went down the first time, which is what we've done 6 weeks ago, I felt when we first came in, there was a really sort of interesting vibe there. It was like just felt like something was going to happen, but I was like, am I just being too excited about being down there? But the second time, which was just Friday just gone, there was at least 5 or 6 times I said, I've not got the same vibe I did when I went down a few weeks earlier. So I think the vibe itself it just depends on. I think if you're wanting to go down and actually enjoy it, I think maybe you've got that good vibe. But when you're trying to maybe debunk, which is what me and Kayleigh set out to do when we went the second time, maybe we didn't have that vibe because of it. I mean, I don't know what Kayleigh thought on that one.
I didn't get the same vibe the last time I was down there, but similarly, the first time I was down there, I didn't get a massively big vibe. But when we were down about 6 weeks ago, there was an energy, and quite apparently, everyone had experiences
What sort of things were you experiencing?
So I brought a group. So the guide said, "Oh, I wouldn't really start at this space. You don't tend to get much activity there." And I went, "Well, right, I'm going to start at the left because I think, just logically, I think that's quite a good place to start and work my way in."
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we stood there, I was asking for stuff to happen, and there was footsteps, there was bangs, and I was amazed. Like I had to leave the group and walk towards, thinking if one of the guides was walking, and they weren't. And I shouted down the tunnel, "There's actually got to be someone there. Like, you're joking me. There's got to be someone there." And everyone witnessed it. Everyone was like, "Nothing's there," and I can't explain that. I really want to be able to explain that because it doesn't make sense in my head that we're told, "Oh yeah, you'll not get too much activity here," but straight away there was.
That kicked your evening off, that form of activity.
Yeah.
Did it get worse from there on, or better, or worse or better, should I say? Which way is it? Better for the ghost hunters, isn't it?
Better. It got a bit quieter, I think. So after that, there was a few bangs. There was a few. I think somebody heard something behind them. Mark, was that you?
Yeah, I actually heard a growl, which was. We were right. We'd just gone sort of like into the next part of the tunnel, and I was like at the back of the group, and it was just where we come from. I heard like this really, really weird growl, and I stopped and I just went walking around, just having a little look, see what it was, and I couldn't explain it.
It's rather timely. My dog is growling in the background. Just as you're saying this, my dog suddenly starts growling, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, weird. If he starts barking, I'll just mute my mic, everybody, just so you know.
Yeah. Well, has there been any reports of dogs and animals and stuff down there previous or not?
No, there hasn't. That's the weird thing, as far as I'm aware.
But that does seem to be what people hear, isn't it? So, like, when it's very often you hear, "I heard a growl" or a whisper in my ear. So it is something that people experience when they're investigating out there. So why do we think that is? That it comes across as a growl? Do you think it's a first manifest of them trying to speak and they're not able to continue because of the energy it takes?
That's a good point. I've never personally heard a growl, so I couldn't tell you. I don't tend to hear things. It would be like footsteps or big bangs, but I don't tend to hear little things like that. It's funny because I feel like different people are perceptive to different things. Like,
yeah, was that when you heard the growl? Was it on a public event? Did you say?
It was on the actual event we did, the actual sort of public event that we did. I don't know if any of the actual other members of the sort of group actually heard it, but they did actually turn around at the same point I did, so they probably heard something but didn't know what it was.
Yeah, so I've got a background in doing the events as well, and I find as well a lot of guests turn up without eating anything beforehand. And then there's when you're calling out and stuff, their stomach starts to growl.
that actually has happened on another hunt that I did ages ago. I've actually got an EVP of that, so that is actually.
But it's just funny how that something that simple can, someone could pick that up and go, oh, that was a dog growling. It's not real.
I do live videos, and my stomach makes weird noises all the time, and I have to say at the start of the video, it's embarrassing as it is, I have to say, if you hear any weird noises, that is me. That don't, like, if you hear anything, and the amount of comments, it'll be like, "That's a growl." I'm like, it wasn't a growl, it was me. All me.
Then you get sighing because I thought it was really good phenomena.
Most teams though tag, don't they? So if you're like doing an EVP session or something and something like that happens, you're supposed to tag it, but that's really difficult to do when you've got public there, because they're not used to that, are they?
No, I mean, I do say to people, if anything happens, if anyone moves, just say, but people aren't going to in a public group, are they? They're going to think, oh, I don't want to say anything.
Particularly if it's their first time ghost hunting, their stomach growls, and they're like, oh, a bit embarrassed, crowd of people I don't know, just let one out. Do you know what I mean? So, oh, by the way, everybody, that was my stomach. You know, it's quite intimidating from a social standing perspective. So it is something you can do when it's just the two of you or just your team. But, you know, because you all know each other really well and they become a para family, don't they? But when it's public, it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the amount of times where you think, oh, that could have been something, but you can never tell because it's happened at a public event, and you think, well, there was definitely a noise, might not have been, could have been, might not have been, and you can't rule it out, but you can't rule it in.
True.
That's it.
True, exactly. So what else has happened down the tunnels?
So another member of our team, I wasn't there, it was the other group, because we're split into two groups. Our skeptic heard a whisper in his ear. He's no longer with us, but he heard a whisper in his ear, and he does not believe, adamantly does not believe, but couldn't explain it away.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And it didn't change or open his mind, shall we say?
No, he didn't. He didn't say anything. He just sort of went, I heard a whisper in my ear. I don't really know what to say about it. I can't explain it. And he definitely thought about it, because I looked at us as well. Everyone was having activity, and he couldn't explain it. And it lends more truth to what we were experiencing, because both teams were in separate parts of the tunnel. And he was a skeptic leading a group, because we do that. I'll always put someone who not necessarily doesn't believe, but I always have a skeptic. And
a balance is the view.
Yeah. Because I think personally, if you want to come on a ghost tour, you don't have to. If you want to come and investigate, you don't have to believe. You can go to rule it out as well, and I feel like there should be a balance of that. Not necessarily should be, but I like there to be.
It's just people like to experience, don't they, I think,
Yeah.
is why some people go on a ghost hunt. So they haven't got a formed opinion, but they kind of just want the experience. And that's really good as well, because basically we're all out there for personal experience, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I am. The amount of things that have happened to me, and I've thought that was definitely something, but could it have been something else? And I can't thoroughly make my mind up. I know there's something. I've seen things. I've heard things, but there's always a but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always that rational bit going, it could have.
Yeah.
Just because I can't explain it doesn't mean to say there's no rational explanation. But I still can't explain it.
Yeah. Towards the end of the tunnel, we were hearing footsteps again, and I mean, the most bizarre thing in the tunnel that I think was the most bizarre was Mark and another team member, Tyona, were at the back of the group. At the front of the group was some of the public and my auntie who was with them. I was in the middle, and Mark and Tyona rushed towards me. I think something had happened. What happened, Mark?
Well, I was sort of a couple of yards sort of in front of Tyona, and Tyona sort of scurried forward and then stopped. I looked at her, she looked at me, we both looked behind, and it was just over her was clumping footsteps, but they were running towards her.
At the same point, the other end of the group rushed back towards me, and everyone sort of met in the middle. I've not experienced anything, but both ends, who were significantly far apart, rushed back towards each other, both claiming something had footsteps and rushed through.
Yeah. It sounds like no disrespect, it sounds like a Scooby-Doo moment.
It does.
Just meeting in the middle of this tunnel, both sides totally freaked out.
And I'm stood there, my auntie's going, Kayleigh, these are saying this. And then Mark and Diana are going, this has just happened. And everyone's like excited and like, oh my God, this has happened. People are petrified. People are having to get taken out. And I'm like, I've missed everything.
Oh, that's so gutting.
I was in the middle.
Oh, that's really unfortunate, hon.
But, I mean, I got to witness both people's reactions at the same time.
Yeah.
So
I bet you was like, what's going on?
There was no way to they didn't have any chance to speak to each other. I mean, Mark and Diana were having their own thing, and then the people at the other end are having their own thing. It was mad.
So was you like literally trapped in the tunnel at that point?
Yeah, we were at the right other end of the tunnel, so we had to walk all the way out.
So was you in the front because they were all scared behind you?
Yeah.
So when they were telling you, when they first got to you at that point in the tunnel, and you're seeing what's being said and their reactions, were they the same?
I think Tiona was bricking it from the end. She's one of our team members. She was absolutely bricking it.
I wasn't.
You weren't. He chased it.
Actually, when I actually just went after it because basically what happened was just after that is I actually saw a shadow in the tunnel, and it was clean as day. I would say about 5'6", 5'7" maybe. And I just said to these guys, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing at this part of the tunnel?" And this is where we just come from. So I don't know whether it's rushed through her and got to her, or it's been the one that's been rushing behind her and then stepped back when we've turned. And I'm glad to say everyone actually saw the shadow.
Everyone in the group.
Everyone in the group saw the shadow.
Yeah.
Because we all stood there, didn't move, just looking at it. Do you see that? And everyone just stood there like, yeah, I do. So when we went in to debunk it, we were looking, right, what could have caused that shadow? And it wasn't there.
Well, what was he doing?
Is that what you went back to debunk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shadow?
It was, because at the time, when I decided I'm going to go towards it, because, that's the way I am. I'd rather go towards it than go away from it, because I've seen a lot of investigators panic and brick and just go the other way. But I thought, no, I want to go towards it. So I went towards where I thought I saw it. And then I got to the end of the tunnel, which was only about, I would say about 70, 80 foot. But I said to Kayleigh on the way back, tell us when you can see us. She couldn't see me. The tunnel was that black, she couldn't see me. And I think it was about 20 foot away from her, she eventually saw me. So the shadow was literally 20 foot away.
But we felt like it was the other end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So it felt further away than it was?
Yeah.
It physically couldn't have been closer because we couldn't see Mark. So if we couldn't see Mark, but we thought that shadow was right at the other end of the tunnel. That's why everyone was just sort of standing there looking like, oh yeah, I can see that. But none of us would have been doing that had it have been stood where it actually had to have been.
Did you get any feeling off of it as well?
I don't know. I think I was just in one of them. When you get so involved in it, like I wasn't even recording. Our group were just so involved in the atmosphere and everything that I didn't pick up the camera.
Yeah. I think for both. I think for us on that particular occasion was we actually were moving out of the tunnel back towards the start, so we could actually start to pack up. And I think for the two I think we were just so struck. We're just so shocked at what we're seeing. None of us actually thought, oh, hang on a second, let's get some recording equipment out. Let's get an EVP out.
That is exactly what I was saying the other night when I did an interview. And I said, the thing is, when something happens, you go into a flight or fright and you're frozen in that moment. And the last thing you're thinking of is voice recorder, camera, whatever piece of kit you've got. Do you know what I mean? That's the last, because you're like, you can't believe what you're seeing or witnessing. Because Because it never happens on cue, does it? It never happens when it's all set up and you're doing it. I mean, it does, but not to the extent of like that kind of experience.
I don't feel like I'm ever going to go back into the tunnel and get the exact same amount of activity. I feel like we just got so lucky with respect to the atmosphere that night. And I mean, the staff there, that one of the guides was telling us on Friday that when he does the events, like Halloween events and stuff, they do like, people would walk past and he would be stood there, whether it would be to jump out or whatever, he would stand on his own in one bit of the tunnel and he would hear footsteps and he would know fine well there's nobody there. And footsteps would go on for like 5 minutes and stop and start again. And we were hearing footsteps. So there's a correlation there between what the staff there are hearing and what we were hearing.
And a footstep is very human.
Yeah. And there was loud ones as well. And it was literally like bang, 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 walking towards us as if there was big heavy boots. And awestruck. I wish I'd have recorded it or done something, but none of that's on video. But everyone in the group, I think there was about 7 or 8 of us, and everyone heard it.
You all experienced that. So whilst you were down there, you obviously were doing various experiments. What kind of experiments were you doing?
So we had the dowsing rods. I don't tend to use them too much, but I do like to bring them out sometimes. We just had the K2 meters, we had the little motion balls, and we were just asking for equipment to move the REM pods and stuff, you know, your generic things. And just calling out, doing EVPs. And we did have a Ouija board at the end, but it didn't move. It was me, Mark, and another investigator doing it. That didn't move.
Did you get any EVPs?
No, not that I know of. We listened to them all at the time. I came back and listened through, and we didn't seem to get anything. No, but
I've still got 3 to go through on mine. But to be honest, I've did about 6, and I didn't hear anything on the 3 that I'd done. Yeah. But again, I just haven't had the time to sort of go back through them. So if I do go back through and forget anything, I can always let you know about it.
That is one of the most laborious bits after an investigation, isn't it? Is going through all the footage and the hours and hours of footage that you do, that people do when they do investigations. There's a lot of dedication when you think about it.
It is, yeah. I mean, the EVPs we do on a public investigation, we'll go over them, but then would tend to take more and do more on private investigations. So, because when we're going there privately, we're going there for us, whereas a public event, we're doing it for the public. So whatever they come in and say, like, say they don't like Ouija boards, we don't touch the Ouija board. If they don't like the dowsing rods, we don't use them. It's just centred on what people want to do. The temperature guns seem quite popular, and I've done investigations where I've asked the temperature to move up and down, and it has, but on the gun, and it's gone up by a degree or 2.
There's that
carry on.
Dog again.
It's that dog again. I'm going to mute my mic so the public won't hear, but you guys will. But carry on.
No worries. So we had the temperature gun. I think that was Vane Tempestall, and I've had that and asked it to move up, and it slowly moved up and up and up and up, and this is right, can you make the temperature go down again? And it's gone down slowly, and I've had that happen twice.
Was there a big gap between what the temperature was and how far it went down or up?
It was between 2 degrees, but in the castle I had it drop considerably more. I've got pictures of that on my phone. I'll need to double check what the temperature was to start with and was at the end.
Yeah.
But I mean, I quite like the temperature gun because I never thought I would get that sort of a reaction, and I'm not a one to think that I like experimenting with different things, but I've never thought I would get that sort of reaction. But it's definitely something I'll try again.
It is something, and I mean, I tend to look at the environmental factors when using that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if there's like, I don't know, 5 degrees difference in the temperature, I think, you know, okay, it could be environmental, and that's sort of what I go with. But if it goes further than that, then I tend to think, well, okay, you know, some things could be, you know, changing the temperature, which you know is a good thing. So, you know, what other equipment do you use? That's, you know, do you use anything different to other teams?
I wouldn't say so. No. Mark, do you think we use anything different to any other teams?
No, I mean, obviously, I use something for myself, but it was because obviously I was a paying guest that night. So what I do is I've got all my own equipment and I bring it with me. I mean, I was using a motion sensor light, and we had that at like various points of the tunnel. So it was sort of like if anything would move past it, it would just light up. Yeah. And obviously that night we didn't actually get anything from that. But at the same time, as we were speaking earlier about the sort of the footsteps we heard at the beginning of the tunnel, where they were coming from was right where my sensor was, and it didn't once actually go off.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
It was quite interesting the fact that it didn't go off, but the sort of the footsteps were in that location.
Well, what do you think's like the best piece of kit that you've got that gives you the best results?
I quite like my REM pods, but I think that's just because, I don't know, I just really like my REM pods. But I've had them in locations where one's gone off in one room, then another one's gone off in another room, but as it's also a bit of equipment that you can't always say, again, like the K2s, you can't say that was definitely paranormal.
Yeah.
It just makes it interesting, and every team finds a different thing that works for them, and that's the point, isn't it? It's like your team, you get quite close, and each team seems to be able to work in their own way. And we talk about that in the spiritual field a lot. You've got to find your own pathway through it and what's right for you, what works for you. And it's the same when you're investigating.
Yeah. I like calling out anyway, though, without equipment. I feel like just calling out, you get a lot of response. Like, you know, if you were to go into a building and people say, oh, well, I'm in there all day and nothing happens, but you go in and then all of a sudden paranormal teams get things. I feel like calling out does quite a lot of good. And
yeah,
I don't know why
using
that is.
Your natural abilities rather than gadgets. Yeah, and I totally agree there. That's sort of what I do when I go out with teams. I like to find somewhere nice and quiet out of the way, let everyone else do their own thing, and I'll just sit there and soak up the atmosphere. And that, you know, you can call out then and things happen. You know, you can start hearing things, footsteps, doors slamming, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so I agree with that. That's what I tend to do.
Well, you know, I don't use any tech when I go out in the field. I just do my thing with the spiritual side of things, and that's, you know, I'm happy with that. That's what I want when I go out investigating. So, guys, are there anything that you've seen out there that other teams have done, like experiment-wise, that you fancy having a go at?
I don't know. I feel like I like a lot of the laser stuff. I know this is going to sound a bit... I do have a little laser pointer, but I quite like... But it's probably just pareidolia rather than... I want to have a go with lasers and smoke. I know that's really, really extreme sort of work-wise effort putting into it. But I do want to have a go with lasers and smoke to see whether that can be manipulated.
Where would be your ideal location to try that out?
My ideal location to try that out. You see, I couldn't name a location. I've got one. I've got one because I've actually been there 2 years ago, and it's Newsham Park Hospital in Liverpool, and it's actually one of the best
nights I ever did in the actual in my sort of ghost hunting times. And at 16 years I've been doing it, and I want to go back there, and I want to do a lot of things, and I think having lasers there and smoke would be an absolutely fantastic opportunity to do it, because it's so eerie. There's so many rooms you can go in, so many things that are actually happening there. I mean, I did use a laser. I did use my laser grid in one of the corridors there, which is where apparently the naughty boys used to get put. Mm-hmm. And again, I couldn't explain it, but I did get a distortion within the laser grid, and it was surrounding a little teddy bear that was sitting on one of the shelves, and there was just a bit of a distortion. So it looked like something was trying to manifest next to the teddy bear. Wow. But then when you actually went towards it, it would just disappear. It would be nothing there. It would just be the clear grid again. But as Kayleigh said, they're very difficult to sort of... You've got to get your right sort of eye setting to do it, because your eyes, I always find, especially when investigating, your eyes can play tricks with you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, no matter how many times you look at things, if you refocus your eyes and it's not there, did you actually see it, or was it just your eyes were just trying to refocus on the dark?
Yeah.
I think that was one of the reasons why I went back down on Friday to sort of check out where the shadow was. And I kind of got a member of the team to actually stand where I saw it. We drove back to where we got the experience, and we could just see the outline of the actual member of our team, and it was just like, that's what we saw. But we didn't get that feeling the second time we were down there.
Yeah. Well, we've got a question in the chat room. Tammy wants to know, what do you think about using heat for spirit to use as energy?
So, like, whether a spirit can manifest, like, a heat source, or whether they could use, like, our heat?
I think, by looking at the question, it's more about you using heat to manifest the spirit, so the spirit can feed off the energy of the heat.
It's not.
Is that something that you've tried?
No, I mean, there's a lot of little things that I want to try. I just sort of stick with what I've got currently, but I'm wanting to branch out and do things. It's just getting the venues to do it in, really. But I love little experiments like that. It's not something I would do with the public. It would be something I would do privately.
Okay, she's just backed that up with using heat from a heat lamp. So if you got obviously a heat lamp, maybe the spirit energy could feed. The spirit could feed off that and grab the energy off the heat.
I mean, we are aware that spirits do like to use sort of batteries, obviously, off equipment to sort of manifest. And I know, like, I've had a couple of bits of equipment that's ran down to one bar when they've been fully charged, and then they've gone back up to full bar, or they've dropped a half bar. And obviously that, I mean, I can't see why not, because I mean, because I think the thing with spirits is they'll try and use anything to manifest. Because if you're in like a big group and you're sort of in a big circle doing a call out, a lot of spirits can sort of interact with you that way, because you're all in such a tight circle, and they're using your body heat, your temperature, to actually try and manifest around you or actually in front of you. So I would say it would be a good way to try, like, for a heat lamp and that.
And then they're withdrawing it from the environment, so your temperature gauges wouldn't be accurate at all. Well, they're a bit dodgy anyway. But isn't it when atoms are moving, they're faster moving when it's warmer, and then when they're colder, they're slower. So if you're the only heat source in the room, on an average ghost hunt, it's always cold, isn't it? So that could be why they draw your own personal energy, or like you say, like energy from a battery, because that's what they're being attracted to. It's a possibility. I don't know. I've not looked into it.
I will say with the batteries in particular, we was talking to an electrician the other night, and he said sometimes it depends on what the batteries are, because sometimes although they display they've got full charge, they don't always have that full charge, and sometimes the displays are different. I can't exactly remember what type of batteries he was referring to.
He was saying you should use lithium batteries, wasn't he?
I can't remember, to be fair, but we'll have to get him on a show and he can explain to everybody. Yeah,
explain to everybody about battery usages in the cold. But it's an interesting concept, isn't it, then, of bringing a heat source into a location rather than relying on every other piece of kit. Maybe it is a useful piece of kit. And like Tammy has said, it kind of takes the focus off of the spirit. If it is doing that, because that's the only sources of energy in the room, then, it might leave, the team alone and the equipment alone and actually draw from that. So who knows? It would be an interesting one to try.
You know what? I went live on my group, not on my page, but on my group a few weeks ago when there was a big storm, and I was just at St Mary's Lighthouse, which is that island, that St Mary's Island. It's just a small lighthouse in Whitley Bay. It's supposed to have a big history to it, but there was a storm, so I went live during the storm, because I was wondering about the opinions on the paranormal and the weather and storms and lightning. Would that formulate anything?
Well, they do say on like heightened electromagnetic fields coming in, then it does increase activity. It's great. It's a storm, or it's full moon, or it's I don't know, high solar flares going off, or there's loads of theories surrounding that. But again, we don't know, do we?
No, because that's another thing I would want to try on an investigation. If there's a time where it's supposed to be really stormy, to go out and do something. Obviously, you've got the rain that'll make loads of noises. Everything changes with the weather anyway, doesn't it? But that's something that I really, really want to try. With the heat, the energy and the environmental stuff, that interests me massively.
I do think it should. I think in theory it should have an effect on spirit energy, because in a thunderstorm, obviously you've got your running water that can create energy in itself. Then on top of that, you've got the lightning bolts and the static energy in the air as well. Yeah. So I can understand there's a lot of environmental factors that can boost the energy.
Yeah, definitely.
Or, playing devil's advocate, of course, it might just make you experience something, and it's actually a natural phenomena rather than a spiritual phenomena.
Yeah.
Well,
it might affect something within ourselves that triggers what we believe is activity. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out.
Like, you always get a headache when there's a storm. I always get a headache with the pressure.
Exactly.
So. Yeah. I must admit, I do that. Yeah, as soon as high pressure comes out, it's like migraine week.
Yeah. Oh, great! Here they come again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't know, and that makes the whole field so fascinating. Is we just don't know. I mean, Tammy has said this is regarding the heat lamp thing. She gave 3 paranormal investigation tours in a cave, and spirit was bouncing off the walls, and I think heat pumps them up.
Yeah.
So it might be an interesting experiment to do, and it's, I don't know, heat lamps, they're not expensive, are they?
I don't know.
No, you should be able to get them.
And that's actually quite a simple experiment you could use without, I mean, because some of the kit is so expensive, isn't it?
Oh,
do you not find that?
I don't buy my REM pods. I get them made by somebody for me. I don't go out and buy the expensive stuff. At the end of the day, I think it's the simpler stuff that works better anyway.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it is. So what do you do after an investigation? Do you log all your results in, like, kind of all the data you collected through the night, as well as all the recordings and stuff that you took?
Yeah, so I write down. I've got a little diary with all the findings I have, but I'll put a little post on my page with everything, so I can scroll back all the time and look. On this night we had this and whatnot, but I do keep a little diary of everything. I feel like that's a bit sad, isn't it? Just keep a little diary of all my investigations.
Well, no, because then you'll start being able to see patterns occur.
Yeah.
And if you keep going back, say you do more events at Victoria Tunnels in particular, because that's really sort of what we've spoken about tonight, and you were getting the same things, it kind of is interesting then, isn't it? It makes it interesting that you're getting the same kind of phenomena in the different locations that you visit, and you'd only know that if you keep all the information from each investigation. So I don't think that's sad at all. I think that's very good.
Yeah, I like keeping track of it, and the tunnels as well. Like I genuinely love them. I think just the history behind them. They're just, even if I go, I feel privileged to be down there anytime I am. I feel like. Whether it's just for the history, it's special. It's a part of Newcastle's history that it's great, and you can see throughout the history. There's little signs on the wall. It'll be great. It's great to just go on a tour during the day.
Well, I actually found a really interesting blog about the tunnels earlier on today in Living North magazine. I'm going to share the link into the chat room for you guys if you want to have a look at a little bit more of the history. And this was somebody who actually just went on one of the tours that they do throughout the day at the Victoria Tunnels, because they do lots of different events there, as you can help. Mark himself was taking part in one event. Give us a quick rundown of that, Mark.
Yeah, so it was basically one of my best friends, Stephen, was part of a play group, and what they did is they decided to do the tour of the Second World War and how people would go down to the shelters on a night time to obviously get away from the bombs. And what we did was three of us reenacted what that person would do. So all three of us got a suitcase. On this occasion, I was actually a person called Jessie Parish, and Jessie was one of the ones who used to go down quite regularly on a night time, because obviously she was just local to Biker, so it was straight into the sort of the tunnel area at Shieldfield, and then straight down and just basically bunker down for the night. And the sort of play was centered around sort of a cheeky little chappie who actually my best mate was playing, and he used to just love trying to steal things when he was down there. So he would go after cigarettes, he would go after just little bits, and we actually had a bit of a laugh about it because I sort of hid me suitcase, so he didn't know who had the other suitcase. And it wasn't until later on he's like, "Aha, suitcase, open." So at the end of that, everyone got a scroll, but everyone who played the part of the actual one of the characters, we actually got a proper scroll, which is actually proudly hanging up on me wall in the front room here. And it just basically gives you an outline of who Jessie Parish was. So it's sort of like it just sort of explains her life as she was going down the tunnels. And it sort of gives them an idea. So she was 26 at the end of the war, and she worked for Vickers Armstrong with her sister, which obviously we know that was not hit. So it just goes on basically just letting you know about what she was. But the other people who were involved was there was Lily Fleck, there was Albert Goodwin, there was Charlotte Horner, James Horner, and Robbie, who obviously was actually the one who played, my best friend played. He played Robbie, who was the cheeky little chappie. But nobody actually knows what Robbie's surname was, because there's nothing actually on the actual sort of history books of what he actually is. So it's really intriguing.
The tunnels
really
themselves, the tunnels are having some events coming up. So if anyone's interested, not me personally, but the actual Usburn Trust are planning a few things, so it's a good thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
It
sounds
a fascinating location. Yeah, I have to say it's definitely looks like a fascinating location to go to. So, guys, if you're out there in the UK, obviously, and if you want to come over from America and investigate, there are investigations going on down the tunnels that I found earlier on today. When are you next due to go back?
I haven't booked it yet, but I'm looking into booking it soon after my event in October. Back in, I'm doing the castle again. So after I've done my Halloween investigation at the castle, I'm going to look at booking the tunnels again because I just love them.
Excellent. Cool. And with that, we've actually come to the end of the show. So time flies when you have fun, doesn't it?
Well, thanks for having us on.
No, it's been brilliant. It's been a good laugh.
It's been a pleasure, actually, yeah. And I want to thank everyone in the chat room for joining us as well. It's been a good show tonight. Thanks for your questions. And yeah, I think that's all other than just to say goodbye now, I think.
Okay, thanks very much for listening, guys, and good night.
Yeah, good night, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.